Yes, and I would love to do that right now. And let me just tell you just a moment before I introduce our honored guest, and that is, we hear a lot about John McMaster, and we certainly are indebted to John and his wife Annie and their family. I want to recognize also, this is interesting, it was 10 years ago that I wrote an article for the North Lake News. Remember North Lake News? Tom, I used to be a reporter. By the way, Tom Corrigan from our Bothell Reporter is doing a great job here. This was 10 years ago that we were talking about searching for descendants of the John McMaster family. And we did a lot of searching. In fact, we went all the way to, Bobby and I went to Kenmore, Ontario and Kenmore, Scotland searching. And we had hoped that that was going to be paid for by Kenmore Heritage. But, we just had a great time in both those communities, but it gave a sense of history. But I do want to recognize John, before I introduce the family, John's brother, Peter McMaster. And the reason I want to do that is, kind of in a way in honor of my father, because when we came out from South Dakota in 1936, it was my father who came out here, found the Willamette Valley, went back there and said, hey gang, there's a better place than South Dakota. And about 8 families have come out since then. And it was always in honor of my father that he was the trailblazer. He said, there's another place. Well, in the story about John McMaster, that's a beautiful 5-page story in the King County Historical Document, written in 1929. This 3rd paragraph says this: Mr. McMaster's brother, Peter McMaster, preceded him to Seattle, where he became manager of a shingle mill on the Tide Flats. So promising did prospects appear to him in the growing mill town that he urged Mr. McMaster, his brother John, to bring his wife and children to the Pacific coast. Mr. McMaster arrived on May 1st, 1889, and was first employed in the mill with his brother Peter. For 5 years, he applied himself to mastering the principles of the business. There was a fascination for him about this branch of the lumber industry, and he saw that as time went on, there would be an increasing demand for this product throughout Washington and throughout the nation. So it was truly 2 brothers working together that made this legacy possible. So I'm going to ask, Bobby, would you bring that chart up here? We put together a McMaster family tree, and Angus and McMaster and his wife, Catherine Dewar, are those Scottish names or not? We went to the Dewar's whiskey distillery, by the way. They have a great product. I highly, it's fantastic. They had 8 children. Margaret, Janet were twins. Alex, John, Peter, Robert, Daniel, and James. Tonight we're going to focus on John and Peter McMaster. John married, he was with the Carpenter family in a mill in Kenmore, Ontario. And did he marry the boss's daughter? I'm not sure. He married Annie McCartner, and they had 6 children. Theodosia, Ella, Clara, Jesse, and 2 sons, William and Edward, who later became vice president of the McMaster Mill. And the other son I'm focusing on, Peter, who led the way to Kenmore. Peter McMaster married Edith Hayes. And he had a son, Ray Angus, picked up the grandfather's name. And they have a daughter, Phyllis Pody McMaster Failer, and she has a son, Mark, and a daughter, Marcia Fusel, and a grandson, Ben. And with that, I would like to ask Pody, if you would stand up, and you now see how she fits into the family tree. Okay. Phyllis's name, Phyllis, that's her name, but she had, I believe, someone who could not pronounce that name very well, and she picked up the name Pody, and everybody loved it. Isn't that a wonderful name? Pody. I love it. So Pody, it's so wonderful to have you here. And she has a son, Mark Failer. Mark, would you stand, please? And daughter Marcia Fusel. Marcia? And now we want to focus on what is really the future of our country, and that is people like Ben Fusel. Ben, will you stand up, please? You know, we talk a lot about our age and everything, but Ben, you're the guy. And what school do you go to?
St. John's.
Catholic school. Yeah, great school down there on Capitol Hill. Yeah. Okay, and look at, he's doing his homework over there. He's either that or he's on Facebook. What is it, homework? There you go. Very good. I'll tell sister tomorrow. Okay, and now we're going to focus on the John McMaster family, and it's interesting, as we were focusing on the family, we connected with Peter first. So when Bobby was holding that up, we saw the John and Andy family, and we Theodosia, Ella, Clara. Tonight we're going to focus on Jesse, and I would like to have John, who is the grandson, is not able to be here, but his wife Jan is here. So Jan, would you stand, please? And Jan, your son, is it Kevin or Darren?
This is Darren.
Darren, if you would stand, please. So Darren, I have to check your genealogical history. John McMaster is your great grandfather? Great. Two great-greats. Okay. Well, I can see you brought a lot of his good qualities down. Well, that is just fantastic. But to be able to look out at this group and be able to say that we have not only a reunion of our community in a way, but also of the McMaster family. And it was so nice to see, Mark told me earlier, he said, you know, I've never met these cousins before, so it'll be great to meet them. Now, I might just speak for 1 minute, and Dick Taylor told me that one of the things that he will do when I'm at the microphone is do this. And that means, Tom, you've talked long enough. Okay? Dick he just did that. He was kidding. Okay. But one of the reasons, some people might say, why is this fascination with finding out about the McMaster family? Well, we recently had a presentation from the Woodinville Heritage Society, and they talked about Mr. Wooden and what he did in founding a lot of the parts of the city. We know about, if you go to Kirkland, what's the name of the founder of Kirkland? Peter Kirk. If you go to Redmond, the founder? Luke Redmond. And if you go to Bothell, who's the founder? Charles Bothell. We do not have anyone named Kenmore, but we do have, with the onset of Peter McMaster coming here and John McMaster, a name that is truly historical and is part of our family. So I guess what I'm saying, Tom, is we've kind of found our founder. Now, I would like to, there's also kind of a beautiful story here. When Dick talked about Let Me Call You Sweetheart, I wanted to just recognize for a minute that it was a little over 1 year ago that Cody's husband, Frank Thaler, passed away. And that was a special moment in their family because they lost one of their cherished members of their family, Mark and Marcia's father. And it was on August 24th, 2009 that Frank Thaler passed away. And Phyllis and Frank have been married 57 years. What a wonderful marriage. So let's applaud marriage. Okay. But Frank had had his master's degree from the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy, and he graduated from Linfield College, and he worked in the Seattle Public Schools. I'm going to have Marcia come up, if you would please, Marcia, and tell a little bit about Let Me Call You Sweetheart, the Cody and Frank romance. And the reason this is special is that Marcia worked for the University Bookstore, and it was through the University Bookstore that this was discovered. And we're going to have Marta Brace talk in just a minute. But Marcia, could you just share a little bit about how your parents came together at the University Bookstore? This is Marcia Fusel, and I can't remember exactly your role at the University Bookstore, but you can fill us in. There you go, Marcia.
Well, I no longer work at the University Bookstore. I left about 5 years ago. But when I was there, I was the marketing manager, and I handled all the advertising and promotions. And during that time, the bookstore celebrated its 100th anniversary. And I had the idea of putting together a history. We finally finished it. I tried to write it myself, but it was too daunting, so I ended up hiring Paul Dorpat. You may know Paul Dorpat. Anyway, hired him to put together the history. And one of the things we decided we wanted to do is people, when they found out we were doing the history of the store, they had so many memories they wanted to share. So we asked customers to submit memories, and my father submitted a memory. And I'll read what he wrote. I had not thought of the bookstore as a matchmaker, but in my case it was. Phyllis McMaster worked in the girls' shop, and I was a part-time runner in textbooks. That was 1951. In 1952, Phyllis, Cody, and I began to go out, and in August of that year we were married. Where would we have been without UBS? Congratulations on the 100th anniversary, and thanks for getting Cody and me together. That's what he wrote, and I was really surprised because I knew, but I didn't really know. So it was really nice to actually have the shelf in my mailbox at work, memory. I don't know, I wasn't there at the meeting at the bookstore.
No, I don't think you were.
I don't know if you want to add anything about the meeting at the bookstore.
No. I was in the girl shop, and he'd come in and buy women's clothes. And then he would ask me to go out, and I thought, forget it, I'm not going. But he's buying, it was for his sister. So I eventually went out with him.
Oh, thank you, Marcia. What a beautiful story. Well, there's a lot of, on the other side of romance in a genealogical search, and that is just the hard work of trying to search out descendants of families. And we have had this 10-year program going along, but a couple years ago at the History Path dedication, Marta Brace walked up with her friend Molly and cousin Molly, and thank you, Bobby. And we started talking about connections with family, and Marta, whose family really was connected in the shingle industry through her husband John, with the McMasters way back when, said, wow, I would love to work on this, and the rest is history. Marta Brace, would you come up and tell a little bit about the journey that you've gone through to get this coming? And of course, this is just the beginning. We're going to keep having more and more descendants. Some will be legitimate, some will be trying to get into the play, but no. Marta, job well done.
I have to tell you how much I love Tom. He's really a recruiter. The real story is, I was working on a lot of race history for over 20 years, and there was this McMaster lineage that I couldn't finish. And I think I found a timber map that's over on the table, and so John McMaster and John Brace had acres and acres and acres of timberland, which is now Briar, that they were harvesting together. So I thought, I started connecting my dots. I knew quite a bit after 20 years, and I thought, well, they probably dropped the logs right here, because the Kenmore mill was here, but then to get to the Brace mill, which is on South Lake Union, they would have to go through the Montlake Cut. So all the dots started to connect, and my husband's retired, fourth generation lumberman from Brace arriving in 1888. So it's 100 years that I've kind of brought it through that. But they did do a park at South Lake Union, which does have some history of the Brace mill, but really impressed with how Log Boom Park was formulated with the history. And I think that that does celebrate the McMaster family very well. And having said that, I showed up with Molly. And he said, what are you doing here, Molly? And she said, I'm with my cousin Marta, and she's looking for the McMasters. And Tom said, you're looking for the McMasters? Maybe you should come to a committee meeting. So it's been really, really fun, and the joy of it all is really meeting the McMaster family. and I'm a terrible public speaker, and Tom made me do
You're
this.
doing it.
So, having said all that,